Mi gente, buenas, buenas. I couldn't join in person because I have really bad allergies, so my apologies.
Isidro,
Sí,
siempre está enfermo,
still
Isidro.
in the sun. I was like, no, he's in the people.
Tú no ves esa big background, gente de Santo Domingo.
Glad you're back.
But yeah, man.
Hope you feel better. Hey, Maria, thank you for joining. Sorry, it was a little bit late.
How many people we need to have in
I think we were 9. So we have 5 here.
No, we have 1, 2, 3. If you go
No, I know, but we have 2 on Zoom.
but they have to be in person, no, unless
No.
they have the
Oh, well, maybe Isidro still counts.
no.
Hello. Hello. We're just gonna give everybody a couple more minutes before we get started.
Oh, good. You won't have a forum and I can go home. Good. All right.
No, please stay. I like your shirt.
Is there a problem if I plug my phone in? No.
Oh, no, that's cool. In the wall, in the wall.
Yeah.
Uh-huh,
Thank you.
no problem.
Yeah, it's brick out there, man. It's crazy. Good for them.
cents to 25 cents, because for $1, instead of getting 5 tokens, you only got 4.
So I think we're still waiting
So
on
by age.
quorum, so thank you for joining in. I know I see several board members on the Zoom, so thank you for joining via Zoom. Just keep in mind, you don't count for quorum if you don't have the self-certification form, so thank you for joining in, but you're not counting for quorum, so that's why we're still waiting for our quorum count. I think I see one person on the Zoom that counts for quorum right now.
Okay.
Otherwise, you know, we can
We
talk
can
about
start?
stuff, we just can't vote on anything.
Okay, so I think that said, we'll get
Let
started.
me just mention the technical thing.
Oh, yeah, they had it? Okay, thank you,
Let me just mention the technical thing.
of course.
Technically, this is not a meeting,
Mhm,
but here we are talking about stuff, but you know.
yeah.
And then mainly, basically.
Until we
can't
get
vote.
quorum,
And
basically.
then it's a meeting, right?
Yeah.
And if we don't, there's a lot of this stuff like, you know,
They're just reports.
right?
Yeah.
So,
I know in CB9, when they don't have quorum yet, they can't call the meeting to order, but they call the meeting to attention.
Hmm.
I never heard of that, but it's something.
Yeah, they call the meeting to attention, and
To get rid of that,
once
right.
they, well, I mean, to, do reports
Yeah, but
and
you know
updates.
what?
And when they hit quorum, then they call the meeting to order.
Okay,
You wouldn't want to do that in Germany. You know how you say attention? Achtung!
well, we're not voting or anything except like changing the calendar.
Or we won't do that in
Okay.
Germany.
In German, right?
So- Okay, guys, so thank you for joining in to our November 20th executive board meeting. Again, our meetings are all hybrid, requiring in-person quorum, unless you have the self-certification to count for online quorum. I'll say that to move on to our meeting norms. I won't dive in, but again, this is just for a reference point for keeping on task and on the agenda. Our agenda is adjusted just a bit. We are moving the board's chair report down in the agenda. She's going to be joining us in a bit. So we just made that accommodation there. Is everybody okay with this agenda?
Oh, you don't have
Should
to.
I keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. Good, okay. So we won't call the meeting officially to order because of a quorum, but I'll pass it over to our district manager, Ebenezer, for a district manager report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Always a pleasure being here as your district manager. I'm very happy to report that last week during the district service cabinet meeting, the police department report that the Border Patrol removed around 20 vehicles, abandoned vehicles in the confines of the 34th precinct. This was in response of our request and advocacy for the last few months, asking the community to report to us any abandoned vehicles in the district and me reporting to the police department. And with the help of the police ambassador, we have been able to complete this removal. So I encourage the community to continue reporting to us the abandoned vehicles, and we will continue working with the police department, the Border Patrol, in order to remove those vehicles. The 34th precinct also made an announcement saying that they have a new meeting day for the community council. The community council for the 34th precinct was scheduled to be the last Thursday of the month, and this date sometimes create confusion because people think sometimes the month has 4 Thursdays, sometimes it have 5 Thursdays. So they decided to change it to the first Thursday of the month starting December 2023. So the first meeting will be on December 7th. The only situation is that it's going to be conflicting with the health committee and our housing committee. But going forward, the 34th precinct community council, it will be meeting on the first Thursday of the month. Regarding our search for staff, we received a lot of resumes for the part-time position that we have. We are screening it, and we will be scheduling an interview shortly. I spoke a few minutes ago with Paola Garcia. As you know, she's out recuperating for a knee surgery. She informed me that she is recuperating well, and she has been taking her therapy, and she's healing well. And she would like to come, before the schedule. She will try to speak with her doctor to see if it's possible that she can return to work before the scheduled date, that is December 11th. I will be out on vacation starting Wednesday, November 22nd, and I'll be back to the office December 12th. I had been making some arrangement with our chairperson, Catherine Diaz, and also with first vice chair, Simari Hernandez, how the office is going to function. I had been preparing all the meetings for the general meeting for this month, all the committee meetings for next month as well. I need that you send me your agenda items if you haven't sent it. I have a few agenda items for a few committees I am preparing. I'm going to be sending it out to Catherine to prepare it and being, distributed to the community. And I hope, to prepare as much as I can. I need your cooperation. Please send me no later than tomorrow morning your agenda items if you haven't sent it to me in order to draft your agenda. This is the end of my report. I return back to you.
Thank you, Ebenezer. I just want to pause for a moment in case there's any questions for you. I don't see any hands in the Zoom.
Actually, I have just one quick one. Great job on the cards, Ebenezer. We hear it so often from people like, oh my God, it's been abandoned, taking up parking spots. What's the best email to contact you? Do you just use your regular email, or you prefer go to that info one if people have to share with people about notifying of other abandoned cars? Just unmute.
People who have my email can do it, but going forward, the office is gonna prefer to every request being sent to the general share email, the CB12M cb.nyc.gov. So in that way, everybody in the office and also the chair can see the request, and we can act in case they're gonna be out on vacation or nobody's available. Somebody that can see it in the office.
Okay, thank you.
There's one question in the room here, Ebenezer.
Ebenezer, as far as garbage, I hear, I've seen a lot of people, a lot of the older folks in the upper 180s and St. Nicholas complaining around garbage laying down in the in the street. Usually like late pickups for garbage, so you have a lot of garbage being put out, and usually spends like a whole day out there. Like the sanitation, because I know that they had like this rat mitigation program, and they were changed the times and this, but it seems like there's more garbage now.
Yes, I agree with you. It seems to be more garbage in the district, more filthy. But one thing that I need to point out, the sanitation cannot clean the street as well with the sweeper. I saw this morning around here by the office when you have parallel parking, the cars they don't move, and with the abandoned cars they don't move, and the sweeper cannot go all the way into the curb. And for the garbage can pick up on the street. Last Friday when I was leaving the office around 6:45, I saw the trucks picking up the garbage around here, but it's not enough. I agree we need more, but we have one handicap in this district, and this board is responsible in part for that, is that we change the street cleaning regulation from 2 days to 1 day because we have graded qualification from the city of New York, but it was not true, and this prevent the cleaning. The thorough cleaning of the street, because people only have to move the car 1 day a week, and they don't move it. People prefer, to leave the car there, go on vacation, pay the fines, because it's cheaper to put the car in a parking garage. And now we have the abandoned vehicles. That's why I'm advocating to people to report it, because the abandoned vehicles and people not moving, the sweeper cannot do the job. So little by little, hopefully we get back. I hope that we can go back to the 2 days cleaning. I know it costs a lot of time, a lot of exercise, and a lot of money for the city, because you need to change the sign. But I wish that we can come back to the 2 days cleaning.
I'll have Jim with a question and then Debbie the last hand here.
Well, I have a comment. Because Ebenezer mentioned, and I think very wisely, that people just leave their cars because the fine is less than the garage. It's very simple. You make the fine more than the garage, and then they will go to the garage. And that's something not something that we can do, but well, the point is, yes, people have a right to park on the street, but the streets have to be kept clean, and it encourages rats, it's unhealthy, whatever. So they have to move their cars, and if we have to raise the fine, then that's what we need to do. And I used to do the alternate side of the street parking, and if people don't move their cars at all, that's outrageous. But moving your car twice a week, that was just enough to make it crazy. You're like a slave to the car. So I don't totally agree. We can get away with the 1 day a week. I'd like to keep that, but people have to move their cars, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ebenezer, before I let Debbie go, would you be able to make Michelle a co-host? Thank you. Go ahead, Debbie.
Co-host?
Michelle Lee.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Hey,
I would say, Ebenezer, that the community is so virulently against going back to 2 days. And I would say that, the problem of people really not moving for the cleaners, even if they're moving their car and leaving their cars, got a lot worse during the pandemic. And traffic enforcement, I've seen it once after a couple of years, and it was only a couple of weeks ago, where the traffic enforcement person comes at the same time, like as the sweeper, if they coordinate, and it's like for the longest time, they're not showing up, at the key time. And I just don't think I don't think the goal should be having everybody else adjust because traffic enforcement's not doing that. And we did have a sweep at least up like towards Fort Tryon Park. They did seem to be doing a better job of putting tickets on all the cars that weren't moving. Just in the past couple of weeks, I saw a lot of tickets. So something's going on, but they just, if people get it once or twice, they stop. But it's just like the longest time that nobody got punished for not moving for the sweepers.
Thank you, Debbie. I don't see any more hands, so thank you, Ebenezer. And we're going to make an additional adjustment to the agenda. We'll transition over to our treasurer's report, and I'll pass it over to Michelle Lee.
Let me share screen.
It's a nominating committee.
All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So I'll present today's report, go through the usual. So the data from today's report was pulled today, and I'm presenting it to you November 20th of 2023. As of today, we are 39% through the fiscal year. Remember, the fiscal year starts in July and ends in June. 40% through, basically. The budget is split into 3 sections: personnel services, which are the salaries for the staff; other than personnel services, OTPS, which are like, the office supplies, other expenses there, as well as our lease. So those are like the big 3 sections that I usually go through. And then in terms of how to read this document, what you see here is a budgeted amount, which is how much we have budgeted for each of the codes, how much we have encumbered, so it's like how much we've like set aside for those codes, and then how much has already been liquidated, which means we've already spent it. And that leaves us with like an uncommitted balance of how much left we have to spend through the end of the fiscal year. So that's the high level I like the way that I like to understand the report is to kind of show you the differences between this month and last month, just to give you a sense of like change over time. So I'll start with the high level changes. On the PS side, I saw that we had moved 1,500 from PS code 001, which is the full year positions, over to PS code 049, which is back pay for prior years. So I just noticed that this budgeted amount actually moved into the 042, I believe, which is the longevity differential. And Ebenezer, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just so that we have the budgeted amount to pay for like the previous year's back pay.
Yes, that's what it is. We have you remember last report, those numbers were in red because they need to pay it, but we don't have funds. So what I did is move these funds in order to have our crystal report in black, not in red.
Got it. Yes, great. Yeah, and I see we've already liquidated some amount towards it too. So yeah, so this amount was moved, so we don't have a red amount here. So that is one change. And then I've also noticed increases in liquidated amounts for PS code 001, full year salaries 042, longevity differential, as well as 061 supper money. And those are all like regular expenses that come out, could happen every month. The full year positions is for salaried. Longevity differentials for I think it's just for Paola, who has been with the community board for a certain amount of time. And the supper money is when the staff stay late and they get an extra allowance for supper. So that's the high level changes there, nothing out of the ordinary. In terms of OTPS, I noticed an increase of about 1,800 in liquidated amount for OTPS code 4112, which is rentals, miscellaneous equipment. Ebenezer, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just the copy machine rental.
Yes, that's to cover rental equipment. It could be I pay to contract the copy machines, that we have 2 copy machines, and also the picnic balls is for the stamps. I pay from there as well.
Okay, so the stamps and the copy machine, cool. So that's the additional amount we've liquidated for 4112. I've noticed that, as well as we've moved 2,500 from OTPS 499, which is a holding code. So that's like when the money lands in our account, over to OTPS 700, which is, I think, what we do as we get ready to spend the money. So you'll just note I just noticed, like, from last month, there was basically 2,500 that moved from 499 to 700. And that's sort of like, I assume, also getting us in the black for this code as well. And yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Ebenezer, is just getting us in the black for that spending.
Which one you're looking at now?
Yeah, just the movement from 499 to 700 of
Yes.
$2,500. Cool.
Yes.
Amazing. Cool. So a little bit changes in how we move the money, but overall nothing major. I remember last month I mentioned that we liquidated $732 in OTPS code 700 1001 for the food in the July community event. Ebenezer, I know you were going to follow up on whether we could use last fiscal year's money for that. Do you have an update on that amount?
Yes, it was gone. Then we were not able to
Okay.
process before the 30th, and even though I allocated it, they didn't allow me to use. I have to pay with these fiscal year funds.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for resolving that. And so yeah, I'll make a note of that here before I send this out. And the last thing I noticed is that we have liquidated an additional $551 in OTPS code 700, 1001. And Ebenezer, if you could just remind me what those expenses were for, just so I can make note of it in my report.
Yes, the funds here on 700, we use to buy anything that we need here, like the cleaning materials if we don't have it, the cleaning person, the translation services, and so on.
Great. So standard stuff, cleaning and translation services.
Yes.
Okay, so that's it for my report. I think those were the only changes from October to November, and yeah, everything else pretty much looks the same. Any questions? Okay.
I
Well,
don't
no
see,
questions.
I don't see any here in the room, Michelle, but that was an awesome job. Do you have a question?
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you, Ebenezer, for the clarification on some of these. So I will write it up and send it out.
Thank you. Just gonna turn our next one. So our next agenda item is a review of future meeting items. So I will screen share our first calendar for December. Let me just share my whole screen. Because, okay, I already have them up. So this is the December 2023 calendar. Just take a look. Let us know if you have any edits. Please raise your hand if you're on the Zoom. If anyone here has any edits, please let us know.
I don't see the cannabis task force in January. Is that?
Well, you're doing December 1st, but yes, I
Huh?
noticed that too.
I'm sorry.
No, it's cool.
Sorry.
That's cool.
Yeah, by the
Jumping
way.
ahead. Sorry about that.
No, no worries. Good eye, look. Okay. So I don't see any hands raised for December. I will transition over my screen to January and I'll let Mary go first. Sorry. There. With cannabis is missing,
Cannabis
right?
task force, which
So we have the cannabis
I'm
task
no longer
force.
going to be on.
No.
You submitting your resignation, Mary? You don't want
Not
to do what the
accepted.
Well, I can't clone myself.
So we
That's
have
the problem.
cannabis that's missing, so I'll just make a note of it there so we can
I've
speak
been on
about it
traffic
later,
and
Ebenezer.
transportation
I also
forever, so-
noticed traffic for you,
Right,
Debbie.
that's missing traffic.
Yes, traffic
Huh?
as
Yeah,
well
the
because of
traffic
that
is
Monday.
missing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's on New Year's.
And then I'll let Daryl.
Otherwise be on New Year's, yeah.
Oh, then we're gonna want a party down Times
Should be
Square.
done with the hangover by then.
Yeah, so because of the
I
New
thought you
Year's
wanted to
holiday,
wait.
Traffic is not on
cannabis
here.
and traffic are not
And,
there.
and bylaws is
Daryl?
missing.
And bylaws
But
is
that
missing.
would be on the
That'll be
17th.
on the 17th or the 10th?
17th.
17th, my bad. I put it
Yeah.
here on the 10th. Okay, so I'll put bylaws.
Yeah, we changed December to second, but
Oh, got it.
we're going back to normal, which
Okay.
is good.
So we're adding bylaws on January 17th at 7 PM.
Yeah.
And then, Debbie, did you have a request for traffic for January? Since it's not listed?
Was that listed because it's a holiday?
Should be the
It would be on the 8th.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so we're tripling up on the 8th then for traffic and cannabis and youth and ed.
No, you don't
No?
want traffic in cannabis. You're not supposed to drive high.
I think we probably cannot support
Three,
these
right?
committee meetings at one night.
Okay,
Yes, noon, because of
I'll
this.
let, sorry, I'll let you finish, Ebenezer.
Yes, we only have 2 Zoom account and to have, we can accommodate 3 committee meetings at once at the same
No
time.
worries. No worries. So I'll let traffic and transit take priority on January 8th at 7. And then we can regroup on cannabis, but we'll have it listed on the calendar when it's shared out. Does that work, Debbie?
Yeah, thanks, Samari. Sorry,
No,
I had a computer glitch, but thank you
no,
for persevering.
no problem. Thank you.
The bylaws in 17.
And then we're
Yeah.
adding bylaws on the 17th.
That's
Yeah. Does the rest of January look okay to everyone?
Let me mention something more important than most things. When we met in person with the executive committee years ago, we got pizza. Remember, man?
That's what I asked about before, the last meeting.
Oh.
I said, are we gonna start
I
at
think we
three?
try having-
We'll definitely work with our treasurer, Michelle,
Maybe that
and
will
with
encourage some of
Ebenezer to try to see
Most
how we
people
can
like
get you
getting
guys some
something
snacks
out of
here.
it with us.
But we'll make a note of it. So
Can I ask, since we're getting into winter?
Mhm.
If there is some sort of heavy / mild snow, can we make it virtual? Or
No.
oh,
so it's still a hybrid meeting, like we,
unless it's like some really bad snow.
No, if it's really horrible, you just postpone the meeting,
yes.
but because,
Or you fall down, you break your leg, therefore you have a,
right, and all these
I don't
people have
listen.
the
Okay.
Be
sufficient.
careful to who you're saying that to, because I can do that easily.
So we're gonna go back,
Without even thinking about
That's
it.
where I broke my.
we're gonna go
clavicle.
back
No,
over,
that's okay.
to our agenda item. Our next agenda item here, I'll pass it over, back to our district manager, Ebenezer, for FY 25 NYC budget ranking hearing update.
Can you talk a little slower? I didn't get anything you said there. Sorry.
We're just gonna go with the budget updates.
Oh, okay.
And then Benezer's gonna do it.
Thank you again. I just want to let you know that we complete our budget ranking for fiscal year 25. Thank you to all the board members who participated. This year, with the help of our chair, Ms. Catherine Diaz, we were able to collect the information in the survey digitally and also have the ranking done by the system. And it was very quick and very thorough in the way we have the ranking this year. I submitted to the Office of City Planning. But the Office of City Planning, besides we submitting the ranking, we need to submit also the statement of district need. It was a lot of work to do that. They helped me a lot in doing it. And finally, this morning, they sent me a draft with the budget ranking and the statement of district need. It's a draft, it may change. Nevertheless, they send me that I can share with everyone. So it's on my agenda to send it to all the board members tomorrow before I go on vacation, so you can have the ranking and the statement of district need at once.
Thank you, Ebenezer.
Can we
Any
see
questions
it?
on that? Oh, yeah, it's going to be shared. We just don't have it ready just yet, but it'll come after. So keep an eye out in your inbox for the district needs.
Yeah, he said he's gonna send it out tomorrow.
Sure. Maria?
Hi, thank you, Ebenezer. I'm trying to talk. Sorry, my kids in the back. Just a question then, because one of the things that we talked about in the Housing and Human Services Committee is just the follow-up that needs to happen so that it's not just a once a year thing, but actually tracking things and following up with the relevant agencies. And so I guess maybe not necessarily a question, but more so a point, not just for our committee, but for all committees, to encourage you all to do that, because that's something we'll certainly be doing. And we may be reaching out to you, Ebenezer, to assist us with connecting us with the relevant contacts and the relevant agencies. So thank you, and we look forward to receiving it.
Thank you. I will help.
Wayne has a question.
no, I just want to reiterate that same point. When land use took a look at our ranking, we noticed that for last year, the items were ranked high, but in each case, there was follow-up that needed to take place that had not taken place. So if we are given the right point people, I think it was at HPD and city planning, we'll make it, sort of a priority for the committee to do the follow-up.
Okay,
But we need the right contact people.
thank you. I think,
I just wanted to suggest other committees might want to follow the same policy, because we'll put it's good to have the office on top of it, so, the committee coming after them, that's even better, I think.
Thank you. I definitely agree. I think, let's keep an eye out for the email that's coming out, so that we reach out to Ebenezer in timely fashion so that we can reach him and get those point persons before he goes on vacation. No, I'm talking too fast.
He won't be here.
Tomorrow?
He's gonna be here.
He's
He'll be
gonna,
here tomorrow and Wednesday.
Yes.
That's us.
Well, we're not gonna follow up, during Thanksgiving. It's okay.
But I'm saying he's not gonna be here until the 12th of December. After the
Yeah,
12th.
but I would say if you take a look at the email tomorrow and reach out to Ebenezer for the contact, then at least we'll have the contact on hand
I don't
to
think he's
reach
gonna have
out
time to
for
do that
after,
then.
ideally. Domingo, you have-
Yeah, I think it should just be a standing item for exec, like, because it's good to know when we get feedback as opposed to like individual committee notifications, just like, hey, this month, follow up for these committees. So like that, there's a sense of accountability because people be like, oh, I didn't see that. You know what I'm saying? It's a recommendation,
definitely,
a standing item in the agenda.
definitely, make a note of it here to discuss with our chair. So I'll move over. If there's no further questions here, thank you, Ebenezer, for the update. I'll move over to our nominating committee update. I don't believe we have any nominating committee members present, but I wanted to share that update that the nominating committee did reach out to all of the members, and they have all been contacted, and they will be taking floor nominations at our next general meeting on November 28th. So be ready. And if you'd like to participate for leadership here at CB12, you're more than welcome. Looking at all of you here.
Hey, thanks.
Let's not even call my person back and say, no, thank you.
No, thank you also. Yeah.
Okay. So that is our nominating committee update. And we'll segue over now to our committee reports. I did not see Joel here yet, so I'll pass it over to Wayne for land use.
Okay. So the November Land Use Committee meeting was primarily focused on the City of Yes for Economic Opportunity zoning text amendment. It is the second of 3 citywide text amendments under the City of Yes, title that is moving forward. The initial presentation to the committee was in November. We will have to vote on it in the December meeting because the due date for responses is January 8th. So that means that at the December general meeting, whatever resolution comes out would have to be voted on. So we have the presentation. I think it would be worthwhile for Ebenezer to share it with all committee members so they have, a grounding on what it is. There are 18 proposals that are clustered under 4 general goals, which are to make it easier to find space and grow, support growing industries, foster vibrant neighborhoods, and new opportunities for business. But under each of those, there are a number of goals, and if you have the chance to read through the presentation, you'd be more grounded when the committee presents something. One of the things that we definitely focused on is there are a number of proposals that would loosen the regulations for nightlife activities. And, given the complaints that we've heard from residents all the time about restaurants that effectively convert to clubs, the question is why the city planning see it as being something they need to promote to make it, easier for nightlife activity. And then in higher density residential districts, there would be even greater flexibility. And the question is, because you live in a higher density residential district, does that mean you have less concern with noise and other disturbances? So there are, that or the proposals around those goals need the most attention. There are other proposals that would allow for mixtures of uses within buildings and for residential and commercial to share the same floors, but to be physically separated. And we suggested they need to clarify how that would work. because it's really a new construction or a substantial rehabilitation, but the way it's presented, you know, to a layperson, they might get the impression that in the apartment building, you know, there would be, you know, uses next to them that are, you know, atypical, which is different from the proposals that would expand the number of businesses that can legally operate out of apartments, which is something different than allowing for mixed use in the building. So clarity was something we also stressed.
You want 30 more seconds?
No, but I mean, that's the reason why I think it's important, Ebenezer, if you could circulate the presentation to all board members for their reference, so they get a better sense of what's being discussed. And for that matter, business development and licensing indicated they wanted to attend the land use, but they were not able to. But since this is economic opportunity, those two committees also should have a vested interest in what's being proposed. So yes, I wanted 30 seconds more.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you. Are there any questions for Wayne here on land?
Also, Cedro.
He's in there.
I see Catherine.
Hey, Kathy.
Hi, all. I just wanted to raise for Wayne's point in Borough Board this month. They did present the plan, and it is one all-encompassing plan, which is tricky because there are, I think, many or several components that might be controversial in some neighborhoods versus others, and certainly some things that other people like support across the board. But what they did clarify, and I think it's important, especially here for chairs to keep in mind if you are going to discuss it in your meetings in December, is that they really want more, like they want folks to give a lot of public comments and to really get nitpicky about it, right? So like if it's specifically about that residential and commercial shared space, they want to hear it, right? We shouldn't feel obligated to respond to the plan as all kind of like an all-in. But really look at each component or the components that we are curious about or really struggling with. Those are the kind of comments that they want to receive. And that public comment period, I believe, closes 12/31, Wayne, or 1/8, something like that.
1/8.
1/8, yeah. So January 8. Okay, perfect.
It's 1/8, but they did say they will continue to accept comments. But they also pointed out, I think at the September informational meetings, that although it's one text amendment with 18 proposals, boards can feel free to say they support some proposals and they don't support others. So they can be, they can itemize and be detailed. They don't have to say, well, we either accept it all or reject it all.
Thank you. So I see no further questions here on the Zoom, so I'll pass it over to Mary Anderson with concerns of the aging.
Our November meeting had a very extensive presentation on elder abuse. We had the DA's office, and we also had Neighborhood Shop, who both organization works with elders and had a lot of information to tell us about. If you get a hold of the minutes when they come out, they're very extensive and detailed. So I've got 2 pages of notes on the presentation. So it will tell you a lot about what's going on, and also, concerning the scams that are happening. Okay. There was also a short discussion at the end of the meeting about the timing of our meeting. And we're in the process of taking a poll to see what the members of the committee feel might work better. It looks at this point like an earlier meeting might work better for most people, and I have to run that by the office, obviously, when we, come up with a decision. Hopefully it will work with both sides. I'm trying to encourage the members for more of them to be present in person. Because right now it's only it's been a max of 4 of us coming in person. So it's,
And the meeting now is at
10:30
What
to
time?
12.
what time do you want to start?
They're talking about starting at 9.
Oh, good, I'll never come.
Because most of the committee members, many of the committee members work, it's difficult to get to work and get involved and stuff and then have to break for this meeting, even though it's only once a month,
Good point.
it is what it is. So they'd rather, there are a couple of people who prefer an evening meeting, but I don't think most of the committee wants to do that, so we'll see what we come up with. Our next, meeting on December 7th, we're gonna have a presentation from the Armory, about programming that they have, especially for seniors, older adults, excuse me, in the community. So that's,
I'll give you 30 more
that's
seconds.
it.
If you want to add anything, I can give you 30 more seconds.
That was all I had, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, because the other thing was for the
For
January
future.
meeting, but that'll be, I'll present that next month.
Thank you. I see Daryl here with a question for you, Mary.
Yeah, I just had a question. I saw, our neighbor, Dr. Ruth, she's now
Oh, yeah.
a new loneliness ambassador.
Exactly.
I'm curious about that program. Maybe she would come
do a
present at a
presentation,
meeting or something.
Yeah, I thought about that,
Yeah, that could be cool.
yeah.
What's her cure for loneliness?
Sex.
I think she was steering away from that, but yeah.
So I don't see any questions on the Zoom, so I'll keep going over. I did not see.
All the articles said she lives in the Bronx. She lives up the block from me on.
They don't know the Bronx from Inwood.
Yeah.
Well,
I know.
Kind of similar. So I don't see anyone here for health and environment.
Well, technically,
So
that's
I'll
Washington Heights.
segue over to housing and human services with Maria Ramirez. Maria, are you ready now? It's now.
Yes, I am ready.
It's my dad.
Thank you, Maria.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Oh,
Hi,
Steve,
good evening.
Steve, you can be
Um,
next.
Sorry?
Oh, no, sorry, Maria. I was just letting Steve know that he can be next, because
Oh,
I'm.
okay. Sounds good. Thank
Name
you.
and
Thank you,
breed.
everyone. So we had a really good meeting earlier, earlier this month. Wait, please. Yes, very good. And sorry, multitasking with homework too. So yeah, we had a good. Can you do your homework, please? So we had a good meeting this month where we had a presentation from West Side Campaign Against Hunger. And then we also had a presentation from a researcher at Columbia University. So West Side Campaign Against Hunger, most of you may be familiar with the organization. They're mostly based out of, or they are based out of 86th Street. They've now kind of signed a lease and will be in the old post office near 180th. And that will actually be their new distribution site. I think they're gonna, if I recall correctly, they're going to start or officially open it next month, so in December, or if not January. That site itself will not serve as a kind of, distribution point, but instead it'll actually serve as like their headquarters, where their teams are, but also kind of how they connect with the different services and organizations in our area and in parts of the Bronx as well. Just because, where they were previously located at on 86th Street was inside of a church. They were obviously thankful for the space, but it wasn't necessarily best fit for kind of their needs in terms of storage of food. So that was really helpful to hear. And they are looking for any organizations that we know of in our neighborhood and in our area to connect with them, so that way they can kind of continue to spread their work, so to speak. We also had a presentation, as I mentioned, from Dr. Robbie Parks from Columbia University. They are working on and I forgot his the part of Columbia University in terms of his team, but his team, they're working on research regarding the impact of heating
inside apartments. And so they are providing kind of like some meters for apartments, and it's a study over a year. They're looking for volunteers. I do need to follow up with Dr. Parks to get a flyer to see kind of who's interested in to kind of spread it around. But they are looking for volunteers to kind of insert these monitors or these meters to be able to kind of track it over a year. In terms of a forward look, and then I'll update on the visit that Michelle and I did to the BRC shelter in the Bronx, which was actually really insightful. In terms of December, we'll be having a visit from HPD, and this would be for they're going to launch a request for proposal for their site 4095 and 9th Avenue, if I'm recalling the 4095 9th Avenue. So this is kind of the space. It's currently a vacant lot, and it's the parking space that was used for kind of charter communication vehicles. And so they're launching a request for a proposal. Catherine and Wayne and I, we had a really helpful chat about a week or so in terms of what does that look like. They're going to present to us next, again in December, figuring out how do we work with that? Is there a town hall? How do we get community input? How do we develop and create the terms, so to speak, on what this potential site can look like? So that's kind of what we're looking forward to for next month. And again, just to kind of quickly wrap up, Michelle and I actually visited a shelter site for BRC. As you all know, there will be kind of the shelter site in Inwood. Hold on, Alex. And it was actually really insightful. I mean, it was quite clear that, at least from my perspective, that they're very much people-centered. We saw the entire site. I know a lot of the questions that some of the community board members and members of the public had are around kind of people loitering outside. They've built these spaces, and it would be the same architect for the location in Inwood in such a way where the entrance is not like protruding onto the street, but actually you kind of have to like walk into it. But also in terms of, they have like built-in inside space and outdoor space that's within the compound or within the building. It was really, really helpful, and I really enjoyed it. I know Michelle joined me, and I'm not sure if Michelle is able to speak at the moment to share her reflections, but sorry. And then I'll wrap up really quickly. And then I guess my last point is Muzzy and the colleagues at BRC are open to hosting kind of future tours if members of the committee are interested in. So just let us know, and we can kind of set that up. So thank you.
Thank you, Marielle. Hey, Michelle.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to add to that, Marielle. Thanks so much for coming with me. It was a lovely tour to go see the BRC. For me, it was really interesting because when we had the reso that came up last year around supporting the construction of the shelter, I know a lot of people, maybe you have conceptions about it, what it would look like. So I thought it would be really lovely to actually go and see the site. A couple of points that I wanted to highlight from our visit. We went to the Landing Road location. So it's really interesting because that site is both has like a shelter as well as affordable housing apartments. So it's like a bit of both, which is really interesting. And the second point that came up is that it's a workforce shelter. That means that the shelter is really targeting folks who are struggling with economic opportunities. So there are a lot of people who are working, looking for jobs, a lot of folks who are a lot of e-bikes because people are doing a lot of food delivery services. So that was really interesting. It seemed very calm overall. There were very low lighting. It was very dark and quiet in much of the shelter, and it seemed pretty calm overall. They seemed to be good neighbors. There's a lot of residences and businesses nearby, and seemed to be like, pretty like a lot of people walking by on the block, and it seemed to be totally safe and fine. And overall, it seemed very well run. So they showed us that they do 30-minute wellness checks in the dorms. Each of the dorms has like its own bathroom and washer dryer. And in addition to the wellness checks, they also check for contraband when you leave and enter the shelter. And then also there's alarms that kind of go off for them if folks are leaving out of the fire doors as they're supposed to go in and out of like the main area. And so overall, it seemed like a really lovely space, and it made me feel more comfortable about having the shelter in Inwood.
Thank you, Michelle, for sharing, and you as well, Maria, and for actually attending and taking a look at the space. So we definitely look forward to hearing more and hopefully joining you in future visits, more of the members as well. I'll pass it back over to Steve Simon for Health and Environment. Hello, Steve.
Hello, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to give a report about some new developments involving New York Presbyterian Hospital, which became known not at my committee meeting, but last week at a meeting of the hospital's Community Leadership Council, of which I am a member. For the first time ever, they announced that they are going to reinstate the psych beds at the Allen Hospital.
Congratulations.
However, hold it.
Say what?
It's not time for a complete celebration yet, because they haven't told us when this will happen, and they haven't told us how many beds will actually be reinstated at the Allen Hospital. They've said that they're going to have to redesign and upgrade the rooms, and apparently create individual rooms instead of I guess what it previously were joint rooms. And so they can't give us a figure at this point as to how many beds will actually be at the Allen. So we're still on hold waiting for that information. There are some indications that if all 30 of the original beds are not reinstated at the Allen, that they may add to the number of beds, psych beds at Milstein in order to compensate for the difference. But we'll have to wait to see what happens. But that is certainly at least one step in the right direction, a major step in the right direction, after we've been advocating for several years that these beds first not be eliminated, and then when they were converted into COVID beds, that they be reinstated after the COVID emergency was lifted. The second thing they announced is that they're going to be constructing a new cancer center at 165th Street and Fort Washington Avenue, the current site of the Eye Institute. And this is going to be a very significant facility with comprehensive cancer services, and it looks as though it's going to be a fairly large building, much larger than what's there now. Demolition is going to take place in 2024, and construction of the new building is most likely going to take, I believe they said, at least another 2 years after that. And then with respect to the building which they presented to us a few years ago to be built at Broadway between 169th and 170th Street, they're saying that building is now undergoing a reevaluation. It's no longer going to have apartments for their employees. It will no longer have guest rooms for patients' families. It will no longer have the what they call the child care hub. They're going to find a different location for that. And what it would now house are rooms or apartments for medical students at Columbia.
So dorm.
Something like that here. So we also, with respect to this building, they indicated demolition could begin in 2024. The other thing I wanted to mention is, with respect to my committee's work, is that we've been in touch with the Ryan Health Program to have a mobile van located at various sites within our district to give out free COVID vaccines and flu shots. I thought Ebenezer not here?
He's the other room.
He goes on vacation on Wednesday.
He's on the other room.
He's on vacation Wednesday?
And comes back the 12th.
Okay, well, that's.
But he's online.
He's online. Okay, well, I was hoping that he would be able to assist us because they want us to get no parking signs from from the precincts and help set up the sites for the mobile vans. They wanted to start a week from Wednesday on the 29th, and we were suggesting 4 possible sites: Sherman and 207th Street, Dykeman and Broadway, St. Nicholas and 181st Street, and Broadway and 168th Street. Somewhere in these areas, we thought would be the best locations. We haven't decided where to begin. My sense is we probably should begin up in Inwood. But if Ebenezer is not going to be around, I guess we have to figure out another way to reach out to the precincts.
Just a recommendation. I always see the Ryan Clinic in Sherman at the Y there. They're always there. I see them at least once a week.
At the Y?
Yeah.
You mean on
No,
Nagel Avenue?
I mean on Nagel Avenue,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
And on Sherman, I always see them at the state assembly member. I've seen them several times there as well. When it comes
So
to,
that's
you know,
so that's also a
Santos, yeah.
so that's also a 207th Street.
Yeah, correct. So like strategically, just a suggestion, Steve, in 182nd, right off of 181st, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, literally almost 7 schools in that block radius. Something to consider.
Well, I mean, it's St. Nicholas.
You could do it on Wadsworth or on St. Nicholas. It doesn't really matter.
Well, they want to have a wide street in case they have to double
St.
park.
Nicholas,
Yeah.
and one thing I could support you with is getting the word out to the schools so that they could, because the issue now is happening is since we have a lot of newly arrival families, they don't get the vaccination just because of the amount of vaccinations they got to get at the same time.
Yeah.
So flu is usually left. COVID, they usually get it immediately, but flu is not one of the vaccines that they get. So something to think about if you're interested in having like school partnerships and
Absolutely,
people to the.
No, I was thinking of reaching out to some of the schools. Yes. So I'll definitely need your help and reach out to you for the one around St. Nicholas and 181st.
And then my other follow-up question, Steve, and I'll be reporting it on my time, but my committee's writing a resolution on, I forgot the bill. Remember the bill about false advertisement of healthy food that is at the state level? I forgot to write it down. I was hoping you did. I'll do the research. I'll find what it is, but it's basically
oh yes, right.
False advertisement of healthy food to young people. So they'll basically say it's healthy when it's actually like super processed food. At the state level, there's currently legislation to hold those corporations accountable. So I think it's something to look at and write a joint resolutions. I'll put it. I'll write something.
Okay, very good.
I'll send it over.
Yeah, I remember it came up at some meeting.
At the general meeting last month.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Got a question.
I don't know. Are you done, Steve? Sorry.
Yeah, I just have to figure out if we can pull it together so we can take care of the logistics and make sure we can get these vans in place. But I'm going to need. I was counting on the fact that the community board would send out, like daily email blasts. I mean, do we have that ability if Ebenezer's away?
We're doing weekly blasts, so we can definitely.
Yeah, I need to. Yeah, I want something more often.
And he also announced that Paola is requesting guidance from her doctors to see if she can come back sooner.
Oh, that would be
So
good.
hopefully we'll have more support.
Oh, that would be helpful. Yeah.
You had a question, though?
One, I don't know if you were reaching out to senior centers too, I thought. The vaccine.
Well, I have a limited ability to do this.
No, I mean,
I was hoping we would have some staff support.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can reach out to senior centers.
Yeah.
My other question though was about, you said the eye center is closing, it's gonna become the cancer center.
Well, the Eye Institute building is going to be demolished.
Right.
And
But what's happening with the Eye Institute?
it's going to end up in that new building.
Oh, that'll be part of the.
Yeah, it'll basically be a cancer institute, but what is the phrase they used? I think they said Cancer Plus. The Eye Institute, the ophthalmology work and stuff will be housed within the new building.
Oh.
But I don't know where it's going to go during the construction
It's gonna be
period.
like 3 years.
Right. What?
It's gonna be like 3 years at least.
Yeah.
Well, maybe 2, but maybe 3.
Maybe 4.
This is a pretty elaborate building.
I remember I was in your committee when they announced the childhood hub.
Yeah.
That was like what, 3 years ago?
More than that.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's, but you've already asked, but if it's an operating building, you have to decant those functions to somewhere.
Yeah.
And then the development project is gonna take 2 or 3 years, then you have to reoccupy. So where will they be for 3 to 4 years?
I don't know, we didn't ask that question. That's a good question.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing more.
Very good.
Thank you, Steve.
Got some follow-up items, Steve. Okay.
So we'll
That's my.
segue over to traffic and transit, or traffic and transportation. Sorry, Debbie. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Simari. So we have
Yeah.
traffic and transportation has two resolutions this month. So Ebenezer, does that mean I need to get it to you tomorrow or like? I mean, one of them's ready to go. The other one I haven't looked at yet. Anyway.
Yes, send me what you have tomorrow. If you don't have one ready, send me at least the title so we can put it on the agenda, okay?
Okay, thank you. So one resolution relates to the M3 bus route. In 2022, a stop was eliminated at 193rd and St. Nicholas, and the stop before that was relocated a little bit south. So what that means is a sensationally disruptive event for people for whom, and I'm sorry, I should say this is on the northbound route. So if you were somebody that needed that, use that 193rd Street stop, you now needed to disembark at 189th. So besides the incremental amount of walking that represented, it's sort of particularly painful because that's the point. If people can visualize on the map, and again, we have a visual in the resolution. If you're going to Fairview, if you're going to Fort George Hill, if you're going like, that's the only way, that's how you get in. So like, if you're continuing on, it's not just those 4 blocks, and there's a lot of NORC buildings there in that area. So there really was an outcry, and very organized response from community members who were just uniformly upset about this. The stop can't be restored because it's sort of related to street changes, and they had to like eliminate that the bus used to make a U-turn maneuver, so that sort of got shut down. So the resolution though asks that the MTA consider sort of adjusting where the route ends to bring it further south. So as people know that, or don't know, I don't know, the terminus of that line is in a very secluded spot at the top of the curve of Fort George Avenue. So the resolution requests them to consider moving the terminus further south, and we give sort of precise points for that. So it's actually a pretty simple resolution. So we think that, hopefully there can be something found that's a better alternative than what people face right now. Because again, I should say that the bus is now turning east on 190th, going to Amsterdam, and heading north. Sorry, it's a little distracting heading north to the terminus. So on the second resolution, people may or may not remember, we had a presentation about the 165th and Riverside intersection that goes back to a request for assistance on that intersection that apparently dates to 2013. It is not easily untied because of like a zillion considerations there. So after 10 years of cracking their heads on it, what the DOT came back to us with was really great in almost all respect, but it had one disqualifying thing, which was that if you were coming uptown on Riverside, and we're gonna make a right on 165th, which is like a lot of what cars do, that would be prohibited, and you'd be detoured in a way that I don't even want to go into. Like, so crazy, it's not even an option. Down to 158th, like the whole thing. Anyway, so after so we didn't resolve on it at the time, but a group of subset of the committee, including Jim, Jody Harrison, Bruce Robertson, took a walk through with DOT and the hospital, etc. And I don't know if it was Jim or somebody else came up with a really elegant solution to work out how you could maybe finagle the right turn. And so this resolution deals with that. And I'll say, I know it's not exactly the same, but because you have the upper roadway of Riverside coming down there as well. So it's hard to make the right from regular Riverside because you have to cross over, you have to sort of cross in front of the upper roadway feeding out there at 165th. So sort of like in the way that you have like a 10th Avenue south of 220, where it's kind of like merges together before you go to Broadway. It's kind of a mini version of that. So
I'm now.
Those are our two resolutions.
Thank you. I see Darrell here has a question for you.
I had a question unrelated to the resolutions. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Is there any plans to do, I know the 181st A train stop, there are new murals on the 184th egress. Are there any plans to do it on the 181st side?
The A train?
No,
The A
no.
train.
The art in the subways, great question, because it'd be awesome. The art in the subways is sort of, that happens in conjunction with a project. And in this case, and so, I mean, there are times when the commission, so to speak, might span more of a particular station. But in most places, it's like it's one piece of art in one location. Now, again, it's art. We have such a long station, so it does leave part of the station without it. But the commission is part of the procurement, in this case, of the ADA accessibility project that will bring elevators to the platform at that station, thereby making it accessible. It's like another procurement, like procuring, like, I don't know, some materials.
Can I just say though, to that what you said totally makes sense. And I get that, but it feels like at that stop, especially, there is a wealthier side and a less wealthy side. And the less wealthy side has no art where the wealthy side does. And the less wealthy side doesn't have signage to tell you when the next subway is coming. That's all the way on the other side, on the wealthy side. Like, you'd have to walk almost 2 blocks underground to view that signage. So
Yeah.
It seems another slight to the 181st, for 184.
Really good suggestion. Why don't I follow up on like how we could make a request for signage for the people that enter from 181st? Such a good point. Such a good point.
Thank you, Debbie. There's one last question for you here.
Any guesses?
My question's around, so we spoke about, are you referring to the bus stop on 192nd and St. Nick, right in front of the Riverside base, the cab base?
I mean, the MTA referred to it as 193 in St. Nicholas on the Uptown M3. So that got removed again because the bus was rerouted to turn right on 190th, like coming uptown, go east on 190th, and then go up Amsterdam. So like basically they took the stop before that, got relocated, like, I don't know if it's half a block, 3/4 of a block south to like between 190 and 189 as opposed to,
Yeah, I
Starting
grew up in that area. That's why
Yeah.
usually that bus stop at 193rd is the only way to really get, well,
Those are those stops.
I
yes,
agree with
But I
the,
think-
It's a spaghetti bowl.
Yeah.
and then my other concern is the mini plaza in 207th Street, similar to what you were saying about 158th. They created like a mini plaza situation in 207th Street where usually you can't make the left on the light. You usually had to cut into
Yes.
207th Street
Yeah.
and make that left in order to make it.
Mhm.
I don't understand how do you make a left now?
I mean, without the maps in front of me, like, yes, they changed, yeah, it all changed, but I it's like sort of
No,
gone
I'm
from my
just saying, just a recommendation, the same way we're speaking on looking at 158th, I think what's happening in 207 is something to look at as well. As far as like rerouting and lack of logic when you change the patterns of like you literally can't make a left. I don't even know how to make a left there. I got a ticket, that's how I found out.
Well, thank you, for the question.
I got a
And
ticket,
thank you,
that's how I
Debbie,
found
for
out. I was like,
sharing.
so where the fuck am I
I
supposed
think
to
I
turn?
definitely recommend, to include the map in the red zone so that we can definitely take a look, and like orient ourselves there.
Yeah, no, and they actually published something that's like actually readable for that change, you know, because everybody was like so upset. They're like, "What did you do?"
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. So we'll segue over to Isidro for licensing.
Well, segue, classy word. Segue.
She works for the DOE.
Transition over.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Isidro.
So licensing had a really light meeting. We didn't have any critical issues. There were only 9 agenda items, out of which we selected to not to support because either they lack documentations and or the representatives were not present. However, we did discuss the need perhaps that starting next year we should include stipulations for everyone that will include the good neighbor sign and also a phone number to display all business establishments that are going to receive the license, because there was a complaint where, and I think it's true, if you go to most of our restaurants that have received the license, we don't see any of the good neighbor signs. And by doing so, it will give us a uniform idea that whenever you pass by a restaurant and or by a lounge, that you have an idea whether or not they're complying with our stipulations. And these are visible things that we are requesting. Imagine what could be going on indoors that oftentimes we don't go in. So this will be 2 of the stipulations that are going to be requiring each business starting like next year. And that's basically it. There was no, we started meeting like on time and we finished up like quite early. So not much to report. Any questions? Simari, I guess
Yeah, I don't see any questions here.
This very nice pink background, by the way. It matches Daryl's shirt.
Yeah, fortunately.
You blonde picture of him too? It's like a deconstructed Daryl. Yeah.
Hey.
Love that hair, by the way.
So I'm gonna pass
You're
it
the only
over.
one to notice.
Pass it over to Domingo for youth and ed.
All right, so we had a presentation from Parks, which I think just speaking about how youth and the different strategic partnerships in the community to get access to La Marina and access to being able to experience a boat ride. Well,
It's not called La Marina.
what's it called?
It's the dike.
The Hudson.
Well, no, you know, no.
They
Dyke
changed
and
it.
Rats.
When it was at the agenda, it was regarded as La Marina
Well, La Marina was the name,
outdoor.
La Marina was the name of the previous concession.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is
Summer.
you're referring to the Dykeman Marina, With it?
Dykeman Marina, yes.
Okay.
Because it's two separate things. The Hudson's the restaurant, the Dykeman Marina is the marina.
But everybody
Yep, you're right,
always
you're
referenced
right.
it as Lama.
Hey.
But the Dykeman Marina,
Very good.
which is pretty dope, just being able to connect youth and provide them to experience maritime experiences and potentially explore even attending maritime high schools, which was pretty good. I'll be working with them to connect them to various schools so that they could experience that. We also spoke about the internship program that I'm introducing to the committee. As far as we've been in communications with schools in the district, and we provided different options. And with the support of the chair, we're able to identify areas in which we can have students that participate in their student governments, be public members, and use the community board as a source of credits for them. So now we'll be able to actively engage youth, not only to have other individuals advocate for their interests, but get their interest from them directly. And I think that's a good precedent to create, to be able to how to effectively engage these kids, and also at the same time creating the space for them to have a safe space to advocate for themselves. So that's something that will be starting in January. We're beginning the process of having them fill out the public member form. So ideally by January, we'll be having our first cohort of young high school students that will be advocating on behalf of their schools, but also as members of the community, which I think is pretty
my question on that. Task force, can it be on task force? Because it literally came up in our meeting.
So I did it as a way of like being able to like, hey, here's the model. Here you go. There's probably
we were saying this at our meeting, like we need to have like youth
Yeah.
representation.
And I think the cool part about that is that it's easily replicable, right? So now it's like, hey, look, it's the board, and you're able to say like, depending on how much public members are allowed per a certain period, if you're interested in the youth, we already have a space that we could identify these youth and create a pipeline for it. So whoever's interested, we could have more conversations offline. We began the conversation also beginning the support for the writing a resolution for next month on the legislation. I got to do my due diligence and identify the bill number and write something. But in our last general board meeting, somebody spoke about the false advertisement of healthy food to kids. There's legislation at the state level to hold these corporations accountable. So we're gonna delve into what the legislation is and write a resolution of support for it. So it's at the same, and also invite our state elected officials to see where they stand on it. We also spoke about accountability and what hybrid means, because I feel like people are constantly, we're back, and this is what I'll keep reiterating, we're back in person unless you have the certification to not be there and still count for quorum. So I think it's a matter of, and I reiterate that here because I think attendance, people have to be held accountable the same way we as chairs sacrifice attending our meetings and doing the behind the scenes work. I think committee members should be kept to that same accord, but at the same time be able to hold people accountable. And yes, and Steve, a direct request of I want to be able to get I want to start getting reports on youth spaces designated for youth, their uses and partnerships. And I'm gonna start with parks. So like every you know how at least every quarter, because one of the things that I feel is the biggest misconception in this community is the lack of space when there's an overwhelming amount of space is that they're being underutilized. And I think we have to hold you city agencies accountable. So just
question on the first one.
Yeah.
For the Dykeman Marina piece, sorry?
Another maritime focus?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's already a pipeline for that in terms of school outreach.
It was a great dope presentation by a parks employee who works at the Dykeman Marina. And he just basically spoke about his experience, but also the partnerships. But what I find interesting about this is that sometimes, like let's say as a community-based organization, your issue's not the access to youth, is access to space. So now with this collaboration, they could collaborate with organizations in the community and really provide a source of being able to expose kids to maritime. All you have to do is bring the kids and support the facilitation.
Isn't it the same thing?
No, because ideally you would say there's a maritime program and I'm coming to you and handing them off and you handle that. It has to be an actual partnership in this situation where it's like they're not doing the program themselves. You're partnering up with them and you're getting access to that space and receiving some of the resources. You get what I'm trying to say? It's totally
take
different.
It offline.
Yeah.
It's a deeper integration what you're saying.
Correct.
I'd like to know a little bit more, but I think the merits of it.
It's a pretty dope concept to create a pipeline to get youth engaged into like maritime high schools and careers.
We can talk about this more then. I'd like to know more.
I know they have one in Staten Island. So I know that was our last committee report, but I do see that Eleazar is present here on, oh, sorry, Maria, you had a question for you?
Yes, I do. And sorry if I missed this, Domingo. Will your committee be picking up any kind of advocacy work around the reduced hours to libraries? Obviously, we've seen kind of the budget cuts and it's impacting kind of our area. Sorry if you already spoke about that.
So I have not. That's something.
Para que vaya a buscarlo, pues yo no puedo. Cuando yo venga a salir.
I just muted him. Sorry.
Yeah, that's something that came up. Those proposed budget cuts and the locations, because Washington Heights Library is what was identified as one of the libraries that would not be providing services on Sundays. Was after our meeting, so I could definitely bring that up and see what type of advocacy the committee is willing to do around that particular area.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for raising that, Marianne. Literacy is very important. So I think that covers it for you. Thank you, Domingo. I'll pass it over to Eleazar. Sorry, Eleazar, we had to mute you, but we'll give you your 3 minutes now, if you're ready. Let me ask you to unmute. Eleazar. I know he's on, but he's otherwise preoccupied. So I'm going to pass it over to Kathy. Kathy, if you're ready.
Hey folks. Sorry I had to be remote, although I'm super close. So, go ahead. Yes, sir. You just bought me time.
Oh, yeah. I was just listening to my name, but she was pronouncing it differently.
Eleazar, en español.
There you go.
Okay.
Yes.
Para la próxima.
Eliezer.
Okay.
Yes, Domingo.
It'd be great to have you here, but next time.
Thank you.
I'll let you go ahead.
Thank you so much. You see, that's considered to be bullying, so yeah, but you gotta have my back. Yeah, extremely excited to be here once again. Nobles, my man, haven't seen you in a little short while, for about a year now.
I'm here.
Our committee was attended, like Domingo was perfectly saying. I think there's I don't know whether we post-COVIDness or whatever we are, but board members, I think, should give the same extra as the chairs are giving. I think that attendance is a must. Otherwise, you almost feel like you're being shortchanged when you don't have enough quorum to, even though you're not passing a resolution, but the fact that you just have 2 or 3 board members and trying to conduct a meeting is a little hard, but we try our best. In our last meeting, we had a family who's been undergoing some issues with in their household, and that took up a lot of time. But we, at the end, referred them to the DS office and Joseph Minaya, who was there, and the local precinct, the 33rd, so that they can handle sort of personal issues that our committee felt as though we weren't there to serve as a court, but mainly just to listen to their grievances. So it was a little interesting because listening to one side of the story, it's hard to try and even take sides or even make a fair judgment on anything. So that was that. The reports from both precincts usually on the positive side, crime is down. I don't have the exact number in front of me. In addition to that, the 34th has been making an extra effort on the scooter issues, and I think that most of us know what happened in 185th Street and St. Nicholas. Fatality occurred about 3 weeks ago, which young fellow was hit by a Jeep.
He hit the Jeep.
Fortunately didn't make it. So the 34th is doing their best. I think there's at the assembly level an effort to try and pass a law that will regulate the scooter vendors, trying to make them require more documentation at the time of sales. So I think that's on the works. Past our meeting, I've been getting a lot of calls from the PTA Association in the, I don't know the school number, the school in 182nd Street in Amsterdam. Do any of you know what the school number is?
Yeah, I think
It's
it's
either
Wheels, right?
143 or Wheels. They're
182nd and 182nd and between Amsterdam and Adelboy.
Something happened at Wheels.
Yeah, I have, and I probably make that presentation during our general meeting. The PTA Association is going to come and talk, and I don't want to steal their thunder. There's a vagrant problem there, a bunch of needles. I have so many pictures to show. And they just gotten bad, especially because they have a scaffold mostly covering the Amsterdam side, and that has become a camp mostly. So they're going through some issues. The PTA Association is I connected them to the local prison CEO Castillo, who is doing his best to try and manage it, but I think he needs a little more something from somebody. I don't know who that somebody is, but he needs some more pressure, because I wouldn't want to be a parent, walking my kid to school and trying to stumble upon a bunch of needles. So that's what's happening. So I'm gonna ask you guys, Ebenezer, Catherine, Madam Chair, and Simaris to put it on the calendar for the next meeting. So the Parents Association want to really talk about it, and they want to voice it out themselves. That's pretty much my report for tonight. So thanks.
Thank you, Elisa. Definitely encourage them to join in at the general meeting to speak during public session. Just to hear more as a whole there. I wanted to ask you before I let anybody else raise their hand. Who are you connecting with at the 34th precinct? I know at licensing, we've been having some attendance issues with the precinct, specifically the 34th, and I know that may be coming up at the general meeting. So I just wanted to raise it here and just to see if you had another contact there. I know we've been doing outreach, so I just wanted to raise that.
Yeah, it's the CEO Castillo himself. I could pass you his number and tell you, try and connect you directly, so you can have if you will, a direct connection with him.
Thank you. Yeah, he's come in the past, so I appreciate it.
Anytime.
I have a question about, because isn't On Point usually at public safety meetings? And then I guess maybe, and then I guess maybe 2 is, and I don't know, maybe we can reach out to District 6 office, is that I feel like all principals should have like On Point on speed dial, if you will. That way, if there is needles, even though it's just a pickup component, that they have that on speed dial, right? Versus, because then it'll delay and then they can pick up the patterns of what's happening.
Well, yeah. The answer to your first question is not. No, that they haven't been in our meetings for the past 3 meetings. In actuality, after our break, no, they have not been in our meetings. And number 2, which is what where I'm at, and I'm not afraid to say it anymore. I don't feel comfortable having to chase them around for something that they promised since day one, and they haven't lived up to their promise. and I could 184th Street in Fort Washington, 184th Street in Audubon, and 182nd in Amsterdam. So it's all over the place. So I think we're at a point in which, on my end, should have a serious conversation about, how committed you are to not just do what you're supposed to, but what you said you were going to do from day one. That's what I'm at with On Point. I don't know whether they're understaffed, but if they are, let us know. Maybe we can help. But something is going to have to be proactively done on their end, rather than just being the other way around, which is us reaching out, and all of a sudden, usually the line of communication usually falls at some point. So that's my 2 cents on that one.
I guess we'll definitely make a note of it here to try and circle back on that point with On Point. I'm sorry. No. Thank you, Ryan.
You may observe it.
So I'll pass it over to our chair, Kathy.
That's why I asked.
Perfect timing.
Oh, snap.
Perfect. Perfect. She knows how to make it incredible.
You make the end. Literally fresh off the airport. All right. I have a lot to share, but I might be a little frazzled. Don't mind me. Oh, by the way, Ellie, I have Jason. I'll reach out. I think one of the big things I always brought up with them is like, what's the capacity to do the number of cleanups? So I think it's worth talking about it again, especially if PTAs are gonna start reporting it. What was I gonna go? Okay, sorry. For chair report. I was hoping to like have the presentation, but I think I'm just gonna email it to folks, give people time to digest it anyway. So Service Design Studio came back with their recommendations, more so, not necessarily findings, about board participation. Public participation in our meetings and making them more public. A lot of the findings weren't surprising. I think the good thing is that it's projects or ideas that we've all talked about, so for example, like having the meetings at the locations of that audience. So like the senior centers, right? Like having the meetings there, but also making that our meetings are kind of combined with an additional purpose. So whether that's like, I'm trying to think about something you guys have shared, but let's say if it's a sign up for like SNAP that's happening, and in that same building, housing and human services is taking place, right? Like the Y tends to have programming at night. Let's say our meeting was happening where there's like similar things moving. So that was just some of it. They did have a few. I don't think it was as many as I probably would have liked, was in terms of the resident surveys. We do have the opportunity, though, as a board to have more surveys and have them be compensated, right? And these are, I think it was $10 or $30 gift cards. So if we do have, even if we don't have a third party doing it for us, if we do want to have a survey that is for the community, maybe we could think about the historic district one, depending how many submissions come in, or anything else, we can compensate that. So that's cool. So I'll circulate that, and also in the board member newsletter. I know Ebenezer spoke about the staffing and the hiring. That's going to be a little tight for next week. And so, while we hope Paola will come, we know that we're also prepping for that not to take place and for her to come the 11th. So we do have a morning intern who supports with like some light administrative stuff. So that'll be helpful. And then we have discussed, I think, what the biggest kind of stressors are, or not stressors, but like the biggest needs are, is making sure that, there's folk that I'm here or that whoever else is here for when applicants drop off their like questionnaires and things, or like anything supplemental, and then for meetings. So that's kind of like the big thing, at least. The third thing I wanted to share was around public members, because Domingo brought it up. Is that I reached out to all, I think I might have been missing two or three public members that we have on the board. One, because I hadn't reached out to them and they're public members. And then two, because public members, according to like our applications, are annual cycles, and then considering that for appointment. So that's one, right? I want to like keep us more standard and compliance about, because I know there are people who've been public members for decades and people who just got on. And then two is quorum and attendance, because public members count towards your quorum. And if we have public members who are listed and don't ever come in this year, then that's a huge issue. I had originally thought about appointing more public members as an opportunity to boost quorum. And that's actually so much more management, trickier, and all of that. So I did reach out to folks to get a sense of who wants to come back, who doesn't, like what they're like. So I'll be talking to all of you just to get a sense of, have they even been coming to our meetings? And to consider reappointments or not. But definitely the goal is to kind of like streamline a little bit, or just to understand where we need public members and what committees don't need public members, if that makes sense. Also, public members are based on like expertise, right? So like, what are they bringing to that committee? And maybe that might not be the best fit for that person. So that'll be, I think the deadline, I gave the deadline of December 1st to get that back to me, and then connect, and then I'll talk to you all about public members. I want to pause there in case there's any questions.
Well, you can have a separate conversation with each one of us about the.
Yeah, about like whoever you have, or if you want public members, we'll talk about that.
That's the one on.
Yeah, well, no, actually that's more quorum. Oh yeah, thank you. I'll get to that because I did put it as an executive session discussion, because I do want to talk about our membership, and that's like talking names. So that's why, that's just if you were curious about the executive session. All right, next thing was the Uptown tour. So booked for December 2nd, Morris Jamel Mansion. Sorry, that's where we go to different places in the district, the tours. Yeah. So Morris Jamel was also, so we worked through our top 3 on the list. Also very good timing based on the New York Times article that came out. So for folks who are very much in the know or care a lot about the mansion and those projects, it'd be a good opportunity just to kind of understand some context.
So what time will that be?
1 o'clock. Saturday. It's a Saturday.
Back pre-COVID, when I was teaching an English conversation class at the Armory, I took my class to the Morris Jamel Mansion.
Oh yeah.
And they loved it. They loved it. I mean, I learned so much.
Oh yeah.
It's great. Yeah, it's really.
Saturday, December 2nd, at 1 o'clock. Yeah. November was tricky, so we pushed it to December. And generally, and I know Saturdays are tough for some folks, but it is a little, it's where we've had more members say that they are able to versus like a weeknight.
Is it accessible yet?
No.
So that's a challenge.
I'll send the link in case you
And the fact that I was not needing to have.
Yeah, we'll make sure to say that
They're
too.
trying.
I wasn't sure about that. When I circulate the link for signups, I think capacity is up to 12 members.
Well, you should check to see if they have or can put a temporary ramp.
Okay.
That's true.
Not even that, there's.
The cobblestone.
The cobblestone get up. I remember some parts
You're
of
only
the
gonna be on the
first
main
floor.
level for the primary event.
For what?
For the primary event, you're probably just gonna be on the main floor on the
I
second.
don't think so.
Well, I say even when the building becomes accessible,
They took us all.
We're talking about for
Sorry, I'm
the
like,
second.
I should have.
but even when the building becomes accessible after the renovation,
Only the main floor.
it'll only be the main floor.
Yeah.
You're not gonna put in an
I
elevator.
don't see it.
250-year-old.
There you go, I know.
They did
All
ready
right.
for
But it's, they
Yeah,
took
I thought
temporary
everybody
ramp.
my bad. Okay, sorry. So then the last thing, so I think we said we were gonna do that in this meeting about the holiday party. So December is rough. I think Hanukkah starts the 11th this year. Generally, I feel like and this would be just a board members holiday party. I think that in January we could start that like meet the board stitch again, but I just wanted to see if folks were okay with Thursdays. We literally have meetings, and so unless it's like a Wednesday, it's looking like a Friday.
What about the 18th? Monday?
Monday before the general, that might be rough because of oh well, things gonna be back.
Well, I mean, we don't meet on Friday, so isn't using a Friday for a party ideal?
Yeah, that would be the service cabinet meeting in the morning. But
No, that's on Thursday.
That's on Thursday.
The 22nd, is that a little close, or the 15th?
I thought it was a weekend.
The 15th, 22nd, any preferences?
The night of the 21st would be available, no?
That's a Thursday.
Oh, like do it a third, yeah, that way, because there are folks who have Sabbath on Friday. Okay, the 21st, we could float the 21st. And then is there a second, just in case, or a different date?
I won't be there.
Okay, what about the
Don't
week
plan-
prior, the week of
don't
the 11th? Friday the 15th?
Maybe the
What?
15th.
For the holiday party, just in case the 21st is too late.
December.
You don't have anything booked yet. I don't know if you're gonna get on it.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, we gotta find faces. We'll work some magic.
We got magic.
We'll work some magic. All right, what am I forgetting? Sorry, I should have written myself down.
We got magic.
Borough
If they're
board.
closed, we'll open it.
Membership. All right, actually, you know what we'll do? I didn't realize that task forces hadn't done report back, so if y'all want to report back, and then we'll go towards a private conversation after that. Shouldn't take too long.
Okay.
Mine's just real quick. We talked about Article 10 at our last meeting. And then we're going to be at the next meeting in December, be finishing up the last few subsections of Article 10 and then go to Article 11, which talks about committee structure and meetings. Cool.
When is that gonna be done? I'm just wondering.
When are we gonna be done? That's a good question. I ask myself that every meeting.
Working draft.
I mean,
No, I'm joking.
I would like to be done before our summer break,
Oh,
but
perfect.
yeah, that is my,
That's the goal.
yes, it's
Thank
not
you.
a consensus, it's not.
sounds
The
like-
work,
Focus group of
the
one.
work might be done, you know, it's
That
done
sounds
when it's done,
doable.
but that's kind of my hope,
Thank you. Ben.
yeah.
For Cannabis Task Force, awesome first meeting, excellent first meeting. A lot of great conversation, really good expertise in the room from some of the public members that came. And the biggest question to come from it is, you know, how do we treat like having a lease before you bring your business in front of the board? Really good spirited conversation about that, because there had been some members of the public that had phoned into the office to discuss just that, and we added it to the agenda. There were a few options that were given, because I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong for folks that certainly know, that is something that we can revise if we vote as a main board, correct? So let me give you an example. Right now, to get in, like, to do the questionnaire and get in front of the task force to be reviewed, you know, for the community board's approval for your retail marijuana dispensary, you need to have a license, a lease, somewhat in the way like you have to have a lease when you go in front of the licensing committee for alcohol. However, since it is such a new emerging area of commerce, commercial license landlords, some are starting to play games where possibly they give out, and I'm going to say that's like, quote unquote, like, we are looking to give you the lease type of letters. I don't really know.
Letter
the terms
of
for that.
intent.
Thank you. Letter of intent. The thing is that the good news in our process right now of you needing to have a lease means that they can only give one lease. Landlords can play games and give multiple letters of intent. And so we kind of had a discussion on why we can't or should not be using letters of intent, because it could lead to that or other issues. But there was a question on what other flexibilities can we provide that allows for them maybe not to sign a lease yet, but knows that they're serious about the space. And I bring that question to us. Because the alternative is to do the way we've done it, where they have to have a lease and then it could stifle business.
I don't know, issuing letters of intent to more than one possible tenant doesn't seem kosher.
No, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it requires good actors, but it's such a emerging market.
Well, as far as good actors on both sides, but I'm
Absolutely.
confused. I thought that for the legal marijuana shops, the leasing was done through the state through DASNY.
That was for the card, for the.
Yeah, that's for the card, not for the space.
Social justice impacted.
So only for those they're
But
handling.
it's currently on litigation, so they literally, that program's on hold right now.
Right, but I guess my question is, what flexibility does the community board of the city have versus what's required by the state? And we just need to be clear on that.
Simari came up with an amazing suggestion. And that was to have a letter of intent with the notary confirmation.
But that's not my question. My question.
It would, but that's the thing though, is that there's not a direct link between community board review and approval and this with the OCM. There's not a direct link. Like with the SLA, you do need a direct link, I believe. Right? You don't need a direct link for, like, meaning that like you don't need to have the lease. You don't need the community board's approval to get the OCM sign off. They already have the license.
It's an opinion. It's
right.
an opinion.
But for SLA, you do need to have the community board.
No,
It's an opinion. So then that's the thing. But then we can revise how we do the opinion though, is what I'm saying.
The opinions are reso, sorry. Whenever we do a reso, whether it's land use or liquor or cannabis, it's an opinion, right? Like we don't force them. So that's why it's like an opinion.
Right.
But actually until last week, I don't even know what today is, the 17th, 16th was the last day for this application window for applicants to notify the board. So so they had to submit if they're applying on a fast track. Last week was the deadline. So my knowledge, unless Ebenezer
I was just gonna ask
the
you
mail
after this
today.
meeting.
No, if Ebenezer, like, depending on whatever the mail is today, or
Right,
and
that's
it's
what-
similar to liquor, they had to certified mail it. So after today, if we didn't get anything, then there's no one to review until
We should
anybody.
still come
this
up with a
application
solution.
window.
We should still come up with a solution.
My recommendation is Nobles, because at the end of the day, this is a business. You know what I mean? And while sometimes we could try to make the process smooth based on individuals, the state also has a responsibility. Initially, DASNY had the responsibility of identifying certain spaces to be able to support individuals on being able to get these storefronts and being like that middle non-partial individual that supported, well, not even non-partial. They were supposed to just rent the space and then put a license in there. That fell apart. I believe OCM, based on their last meeting, they just conceded the lawsuit, so they'll be.
Yeah, they settled.
They settled the lawsuit, so the state never really goes through with it. They just settled it. So I guess the card program is gonna cease to exist.
No, it's like they can continue doing business.
Okay.
That's
so now that program is backtracked. Now the individuals that, because we got to differentiate the equity program from now the applications that are being received.
Exactly.
These are individuals that you expect to be business owners and experience with business and are applying for a very competitive licensing process. I feel like we should maintain because if they don't do their due diligence, at the end of the day, the state is not responsible for that component of, I'm assuming.
And this came up too. Basically, as a business owner, they should know how to run a business and thereby be able to get a lease without having any kind of financial liability.
But
this came up as
before we put ourselves in a situation where now we don't also want to be seen as somebody, like, we first have to see what good business models are going to be put out there. Because the last thing we want to do is facilitate something that bites everybody in the behind. And then it's like, we don't know anything.
And more or less, that's where we wrap the meeting. And just so that I only have a couple of minutes left, right? Where it's like, look, until we come up with a better system with many things involved, we're going to just rely on the default where you need to have a lease already signed.
At least for
and everyone was cool with that. The thing is that we had a lot of public call-in for that. We had a lot of people in the meeting about that specifically. And this is the same exact conversation, which we did in a very efficient, like 3-4 minutes. That being said, the other thing we had discussed was briefly was how law enforcement is done when it comes to dispensaries, gray market, and once we actually do get our certifiable legal retail markets, and how OCM takes care of the law enforcement, thank God. But how we're gonna have to disseminate that information in the community. So that was like also a very fruitful conversation. I really highly suggest everyone watch the video.
Yeah,
It was the first and also pretty historic for New York as a state, especially uptown. So please take a look. But that's my report.
Thank you. I was gonna add, sorry, then Borough Board was supposed to have a presentation from OCM because we're smooth compared to downtown. Downtown got like 75 plus.
Yo,
Apparently there's landlords who are fighting each other and like telling the boards conflicting information. Like it's
crazy out there.
It's wild what's happening downtown in like 1, 2, and 3. I would say it is crazy.
Which is why we benefit.
Or like in
see
the
what's
sense,
happening.
there's landlords who are signing multiple letters of intent for multiple entities. So it's very messy for the same space.
So whoever gets it first,
I'll give you an anecdote.
So they'll but in downtown, imagine, you know, it's like
I will give you an anecdote. I will give you a small anecdote. I used to be the head of media for Lysol. I knew about COVID months before it got here. And people in my office were still talking about, well, I don't know if it's going to happen to me. This is going to happen to us. We've been talking about how do we scale this process.
Exactly.
And we can't scale if everyone needs a lease. Like it's going to come to us. We got to start to put these things in place now.
So
what would you recommend, Nova?
Honestly, somebody's notary, I think if we do find ourselves in an unscalable position when it comes to these leases stifling business, I think that's a good fallback.
So sorry, I was gonna say
all the
two
notary
others,
does
so
is all the notary does is confirm that the person who signed the letter is in fact that person. That if somebody signs Steve
And the
Simon,
time of which.
yeah, well,
I mean, we could talk about it all night. What I did want to, I brought it up only because
I don't think that's the
they did not go.
Letters the first.
And there's another meeting with boards that's supposed to happen. I did ask for them to give us time and to schedule another one because it's the day of our general meeting. Meaning, no, and not just us, like the last week of the month is when everybody has their most people have their general meetings. But we could talk about it later, I think, just around like down the road. Yeah,
But just a quick point, because there are some landlords that, for example, the same way that they don't want restaurants or liquor stores, there are some landlords that they don't want the kind of, so the problem of having multiple letters of intent may not be a problem to the extent that it's being discussed, because what that's saying is in that location, you have a property owner who is willing to accept that kind of a tenant. So then it becomes a matter of a tenant who has their business plan together that can operate that. And so it's probably good to know what spaces would welcome that type of business.
But now
But I mean, if you're looking, for example, at an RFP for a development project, it is not unusual for a bank to issue multiple letters of intent, so they would be interested in providing financing or in doing, mortgage loans for that.
Sure.
But contingent upon your getting XYZ.
Yep.
But then my issue with those landlords is, Nobles, they'll create a crazy amount of inflation for
That's
the
what I'm
rent,
saying.
further increasing.
Because then you can do a bidding war.
Yeah, you
people
do
that
a
they're
bidding
intending to
war.
do business with.
But that's no different than if you have, McDonald's bidding against Burger King.
But it is different because when it comes to this law,
business at the end.
but the law is supposed to be repertory in nature. That's supposed to be for disenfranchised areas.
Now we're talking about just.
But this is why it's so complicated. And we don't need to solve this tonight. But I'm saying it is something that we should have a conversation on if it stifles business. It might not be an issue. But I do see what's going on.
Right.
That's why I get ahead of it.
Also, at the end of the day, if we're talking about, profit-making businesses, then whomever it is, they need to have a business plan that makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, this is all with rational, good faith actors.
Yeah, that's true.
On both sides. Both sides.
And rational.
Yeah.
All right.
Seems to be wanting from this table. Well, not from this table, outside of this table. So
I had two things that I forgot to share. So on the last newsletter, I shared the board members survey. Jacob and I are working on building that up. And no, it's fine. And so for that survey, I'm gonna see if I can send a mock-up within exec specifically. We're putting it through SurveyMonkey. I think it's gonna be a little long, but it's gonna be fruitful. And essentially what we're looking for is